He wouldn't be able to be here, right?
Okay, we're going to call the Urban Renewal Commission meeting of November 26th to order. Can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Here.
Commissioner Holliday,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Commissioner Van Haverbeek is absent this evening, Commissioner Ide,
Here.
and Chair Mengelberg.
Here. All right, do we have any citizens' comments this evening?
No, we don't.
All right. Reminder to everyone to please turn off your cell phones or silence them, please. Next, we'll adopt the agenda. Are there any changes?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll adopt the agenda. General business, disposition and development agreement for the Cove project. Our Economic Development Director will lead the discussion.
Thank you, Chair Mingelberg. Tonight we have before you the disposition and development agreement for the Cove. The project as defined in the DDA, the disposition and development agreement, is described as Phase 2A and 2B. Along with the necessary infrastructure improvements, Phase 2A consists of 5 buildings on the southwest portion of the development site, and Phase 2B consists of 3 buildings at the northwest portion of the development site. The buildings will be constructed as an 8-building multifamily mixed-use project with other related improvements and amenities. The developer will be constructing a new Agnes Avenue and all necessary utilities, an esplanade along the waterfront, and eventually trailhead parking and significant shoreline habitat improvements. We expect this project to stimulate the local economy by adding a number of jobs, both direct and indirect, and enhancing the mix of area uses and adding new residents who are likely to become consumers and patrons of existing services and businesses that surround the site. The DDA identifies the scope of the project, preconditions that must be met prior to construction, developer loan commitment requirements, property acquisition timelines, and necessary reversionary clauses to the benefit of the URC. The Cove DDA with exhibits is attached to this report, and we are asking for your approval and discussion tonight. So,
Are there any presentations?
not for this, sorry.
Any questions by the commission?
The one thing also that I wanted to point out is that as part of the attachments, there is attachment C to the disposition and development agreement that talks about the preliminary grading earthwork plan. And so some of this that's in the DDA is also going to be what you see in the land use document itself. And so some of the work was, because this entire site is located within the Oregon City floodplain, we have a balanced cut and fill requirement in the municipal code. Essentially, for every cubic yard of fill that you add, you need to cut a cubic yard from somewhere. Because of the extent of earthwork that needs to occur in order to make these sites buildable, specifically 2A and 2B Agnes Avenue, they're a significant cut. So we had the developer put together as part of the earthwork plan, or grading plan, essentially the same thing, but was to identify and demonstrate that the balanced cut and fill could be accomplished. But what that means is that in the next item that we'll be discussing, assuming approval of the DDA as it relates to the land use application, one of the attachments is the floodplain balance memorandum. It's attachment 7 that lays out the assumptions that are made as to where that balanced cut and fill will occur. And just want to point out that tract A, which has been part of the discussion that we've had tonight or we've previously had about when development of that may occur. This is something that would happen in the future, but that lot may be necessary for some cutting in order to meet the balanced cut and fill requirements. So just want to make sure folks are aware of that we're utilizing all of our urban renewal assets in order to meet that balanced cut and fill requirement throughout the project. And that memorandum does lay out that it may be needed for a cut, it might not. As we get into the refined grading plans and building plans, we'll have, these numbers will obviously get much, much more exact as we go through the development process. Also wanted to point out that the public investment to mitigate the substantial cost of correcting the development site will include a financial contribution of $695,000 from the Urban Renewal District to the project for products that consist of the reimbursement of the Phase 2 environmental, design engineering costs for the infrastructure, city land use application fees, similar fees to that until we hit that $695,000, and that expenditure has to happen within the 360 days, 50 days to comply with our charter requirement for what is considered bonded indebtedness. Bonded indebtedness is a public investment to another entity a year or more out. This would be within 1 year from existing funds in the district.
Move to approve the disposition and development agreement for the Cove project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Holiday,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Ide. Aye. And Chair Mengelberg.
Aye. It's approved unanimously. Moving on to the Cove Development Disposition and Development Agreement approval of preconditions. Mr. Underwood.
Defer to Mr. Conkle.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start this as well. So, well, congratulations. Long time coming.
Nothing happens quick here. I'm just telling you right now.
As part of the disposition and development agreement, DDA, that was just approved, there are several preconditions in there that need to be met in order to move forward with constructions. One that is that we hope to begin moving forward with deals with the approval of preconditions 3.2.1, 3.2.2, and 3.2.6 of the disposition and development agreement. The DDA lays out certain timeframes on when certain approvals are necessary and certain additional approvals that are needed from the Urban Renewal Commission before certain things such as the land use application can be submitted. 3.2.1, the parties shall have agreed on the development plans pursuant to section 5.1. So the developer will make a presentation here tonight demonstrating the proposal, the development plan, really asking for, the commission to approve the development plan. So we're looking for, is this consistent with what you're expecting from the project? They have quality plans in there as it relates to the type of architecture of the room, the layouts. These are things that have been presented before, ensuring that what you hear tonight, which is going to then be what is submitted, is consistent with what your understanding of the project is. You also have the ability to look at the infrastructure that's being constructed, and infrastructure work is defined in the DDA as construction of Agnes Avenue along the property, construction of a 20-foot wide bike ped path, emergency access drive, construction of the esplanade and related improvements on Track C, which are along the Cove waterfront, and then construction of a trailhead including parking, monument sign. Realizing that as part of this, you're really going to see this in two phases. The applicant is proposing to submit the concept development plan, so the bigger picture phasing plan, large infrastructure assumptions, building plans, and then the detailed development plan for the mass grading. That's the part that we really do need to get moving forward sooner rather than later. Would also include subdividing the property, dealing with the flood management overlay district, balance cut and fill, a lot of those larger site decisions that are being spread over the entirety of the project. We would expect then that a second land use application would be coming in, a detailed development plan, which would be focusing on the buildings themselves, parking lots, stormwater management, the esplanade, those specific design details. So we're really bifurcating this land use process into two steps. But you do have the requirement of the commission as the property owner, to approve the land use application itself. We included several attachments as part of this staff report, laying out the narrative of the land use application, the earthwork grading plan, color perspectives, the concept development plan, the plan sets, trip generation letter as it relates to transportation, the floodplain balance memorandum, concept development plan amendment. So there's a lot of information that we provided that we thought would be helpful in you making a decision whether there's enough information that you're supportive of to submit the land use application. I have the entire land use application right here. If there are attachments that we did not attach that you'd like to see, we can produce those here tonight. So really looking for working through these three preconditions to get that land use submittal submitted and begin that process. Your approval to submit is not an approval of the land use application. It would still go through our normal land use process, which would include staff reviewing it for completeness. Once it's deemed complete, we start the land use process for public notification, public comment. So it would then go through that land use process. Approving the application to be submitted is not approving any adjustments that are necessary or whatnot. That would still need to be approved through the normal land use hearing process. And then the last one is precondition 3.2.6, agreed on the earthwork plan. I think that the applicant has provided not only the earthwork plan, but the detailed mass grading plans are in the land use application. And they've documented the ability to meet the balance cut and fill requirements to comply with our flood management overlay district. So I'll go ahead and stop there. I could answer questions now, or we could hear from the developer on the presentation and then go with questions at that point, whichever you'd like.
I like to hear the developer.
Yeah,
so.
I'm good with that.
Let's have the presentation
Sure.
from the development team.
Okay, thank you.
Do you just state our name and where we're from?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. So Colin Kehoe, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Vice President of Hudson Holdings.
Paul Boundy, LRS Architects, Portland, Oregon.
So I guess firstly, thank you for
USA.
approving the for approving the DDA. I won't say too much, but I'll hand it over to Paul. He'll take you through a similar presentation you've seen before, but it's a little more in depth.
Yeah, thank you. As Tony and Colin mentioned, this is probably information you've seen before. We've supplemented it with a little more landscape information. We have an additional floor plan or two in here. I did not bring full floor plans for the project, but we've got the partials included. So we'll go through this. I noticed that PowerPoint and all its magic has changed all my fonts on me, so I'll try not to be too upset about that. Okay, to zoom in here, hard to zoom in on this, but as we've seen the site plan before, we have, I'm not going to point at it, I don't want to blind anybody. But we have in the development plan at the moment, we have 5 Phase 2A buildings and we have 3 Phase 2B buildings. The nomenclature for the buildings that we have are Buildings A, Buildings B, and Buildings D. The 2A buildings are either side of the public plaza space, the access to the pedway. And the 2B buildings, primarily residential buildings, are the 2 long skinny buildings between them. And then the Building D buildings are the anchors at each end of the site. To the sort of the southwest here is Agnes development, Agnes Road coming off of the traffic circle, the existing traffic circle, and then proceeding up towards the north end of the site. There'll be a fire access exit or an emergency egress through the road through the wastewater treatment plant. There's a couple of small traffic circles, also one at the end of the other end of the pathway. And then we're showing the North Park up there in a future phase. So that kind of sums it up. There's parking, a double loaded row of parking along Agnes between the buildings in Agnes. There's another double loaded parking beneath each of the buildings. So we have subgrade parking in addition to the surface parking. And if you have any questions as we're going through, or you want me to expand on something, I'd be happy to do that. The next images, you've seen a couple of these before. This is the architect's rendering of what the buildings and the landscape could look like. And what I've included this time is what the landscape architect thinks the building's going to look like with the plantings a little more developed. So ignore the buildings. They're the same. They just don't know color very well. So what they've done is enhanced where the plantings with the ability where they think this is going to be in I don't know the exact time frame, but it's as the plantings develop into a little more mature state. So the access point, the monument sign for the development is shown here. We've got a couple of other along the edge. This is the building D. This is along Main and Agnes. So because of the floodplains, that's why the building is quite high up on the site here. Main Street is in the floodplain here. Agnes kind of pulls out of the floodplain a little bit. But the parking and the building itself is set just above the floodplain. So that you're seeing a little bit of retaining wall, which is hiding both the vehicle parking underneath and or we're using landscape to screen the vehicle parking and the retaining walls along this edge. And what you see at the end towards the left side of the image is the access to the bike path and the pedway. And kind of a look back the other direction, there is the live-work units, which you'll hear a little bit more about as we go through here, are located on the faces towards Main Street here. So this one is kind of up. The base of the building is a brick masonry material. It's a storefront with the unit with the live works up on the street. We're looking at some options now to put a couple more in the ground level here of the D building, but you'll see them also in the floor level of the B buildings as well. So anywhere we're facing Agnes or Main Street, we're aiming for that. Yes, sir.
So that's the existing elevation of Main, right?
Correct.
So where that guy's running,
Correct.
compared to somebody standing up there on that walkway, what's the height?
It's about 12 feet.
12 feet, okay, thank you.
Might be a little.
It's a little taller than that.
Oh.
It's about 12 feet, or 17 feet.
17
A little
feet,
taller,
sorry.
12.
17.
That's a little,
From the top of his head to the, it's 12.
So clearly Agnes and buildings are out of the floodplain. Assuming that there is a flood someday, how would people be getting in and out? Would they,
That is the access point through at the north end of the site, through the wastewater treatment plant
okay.
access. So that road will continue on and connects to, I can't remember the other name, the street at the other end of that development. Okay. Oops, got that one in there twice. The building A's are either side of the plaza, and we've included a plan here just to show the relationship of the street. Agnes is towards the bottom of the page. What you're seeing there is the parking that is on the street on Agnes. We have the public plaza that comes in. There'll be a water feature in the middle of the plaza, trees and plantings along the edge, fairly formal, fairly symmetrical, because the buildings will be kind of both fairly symmetrical. They are somewhat identical above. On the ground floor, what you see is the building on the left is got the amenity space for the complex. It has a fitness space. It has a shared lobby that also serves the housing units above. There's 30 units in each of these buildings, 33. On the deck to the left, up above, you see the swimming pool. That's the shared amenity. There's also barbecue. There's private lounge space that they can, for the tenants to basically reserve and use for events. And then there's fire pits and that sort of thing on those patios. The plan on the right, the building on the right, also back to the left, the two units facing the Agnes side are intended to be a commercial use. They're currently slated to be a retail or some sort of for rent. I think the market's going to drive what ultimately ends up in there, but it will be a commercial type use. The building on the right, we're really hoping hard that there's a nice restaurant on the side of this that faces. The patio there is going to be available for that use for the restaurant, to be able to utilize, put outdoor seating. And then the two spaces, the other two spaces. And this building is going to be kind of driven by the market. How big the retail is, how big the restaurant is going to really be driven by the tenants and the potential draw. And so we've identified the two along Agnes there as retail. They could be restaurant, they could be office, they could be something else. So we'll kind of see. What we want to have is something that obviously fills it up. So it's active, it's in use, it's not, we don't want to see empty storefront there for very long. that we can get at least, hopefully, the less time, the better. Any questions about these two buildings? Nope. Okay. Some of the images for this, the plaza itself, again, we have the paved surfaces, we have a granite surface that's kind of a gravel granite surface that's being used as the base for the plants, and the trees on either side of that. It's kind of almost a Parisian boulevard kind of image, if you can if that strikes anything to mind. There's a lot of landscaping on both ends of it, and so we're trying not to over landscape and get just too much landscaping going on in this area so people can use it for other things. Maybe there's benches, maybe there's other things that happen, that you can get a lot more people there if there's a special event to happen out on those surfaces. This is, excuse me, the view from again, the architect's view of the patio from the cove side, and then the landscape architect's view of what the more mature landscaping is going to look like here. We haven't decided what that edge railing is yet. That's one of the design development pieces that we're working through. So those are the types of things that we're in the process of at the moment that'll come in the more detailed application for land use. Again, the plaza, you've seen this image before, but the stairs coming down to the the river trail, basically. And the ramp to the left is for bicycles and accessibility. There's a lot of seating areas, seating opportunities. There's a lot of spots to just kind of sit and see what's going on and watch people, and a lot of activity going on there with joggers and walkers and bicyclists and dogs. And this next one is the landscape architect's view of that same image, a little more mature landscaping, as I mentioned. And then the view of the overall complex from a distance, just to kind of see what this will look like. The landscape, the restoration of the cove is something that is not going to be represented here in a graphic. That's going to be something that we can talk about, or can be talked about, or questions. So it kind of gives you a sense of what's beyond and what the buildings will tend to look like. I have a little more detail on the exteriors. Last time we've seen the materials, generally the brick, the lap siding, the general color scope that we're aiming towards at the moment. And this little more breakdown of that, showing you a partial of, this is the partial of, I don't remember which building this is, but it has the brick base. There's going to be sort of a concrete anchor to that brick base. The grayish brick color, the glazing at that ground level is going to be storefront, very retail representation. Yes, sir.
So this lower floor on here kind of represents what the live work unit's going to look like?
Correct. I believe this is actually a building A, so what we're seeing with the amount of glass there are the retail spaces. But it'll be a commercial storefront type. And then up above, we have nearly all the units have patios, decks that you can kind of see represented here with the more French door, sliding glass door, and then large windows that are in the living spaces.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see, and you can also see in this image some of the roof lines. It's a little subtle on the top, but we've got areas, the top floor has some taller windows, has some different roof lines in the living room spaces. So it kind of changes that roof line, gives the buildings a little variety. The second one here gives a little bit different. This is one of the B buildings, so this identifies essentially the residential building with the live-work units. What you see in the center, the doors, the storefront for the live-work units, the windows on either side are living space and bedroom space in the way the plan lays out. And we'll see the floor plan a little further along. It gives you a sense of trying to use the color, trim, good size, generous windows. In this case, we've got smaller windows in the bedrooms that are, in this specific case, the living rooms are opening to the patio, but the bedrooms are not. So there's a little variety in the units and how that works out. We're also working with the railings on the decks to see where we're looking at glass railings, glass versus metal railings and things like that, that we're going through that exercise at the moment. That's comparing pricing and look and constructability. And then another view of, I believe this is the piece of the D building, which also has live work units on the ground floor. a little more variety in the roof. I think these also have the loft units, and so you see a little taller roof on the other side. That came up in the renderings. We're looking at it from the Agnes Street side here, which the lofts are all facing the cove. Unit layouts, which we've seen before. We can go back and look at these a little more. I want to get to the live work basically on the right here, and you're kind of identifying the room on the left is the commercial space setback. The city planning requirements are some sort of colonnade or some sort of cover canopy. We've chosen to set the door back a little bit and let the brick be sort of a colonnade in front of it. The living room space and then the bedroom space you can see kind of come out to the front of the unit here as well. Okay, that is it. Any questions?
Well, it's pretty exciting. I think this has been going on
Too long.
10 years. Because I know that I sat on urban renewal for about 4 years. It was there, this was here then. And then 4 years as a commissioner, it's been here. So I've been at it for 8 years. So this is a thrill for me to see this come to fruition tonight here. So I like the way it, there's two separate projects. There's the, we'll call it phase one, I think, across Main Street, and then you folks, they complement each other, but they're different. So I'm happy to see a variety of architecture down there. And also for Mr. Deacon here to, anytime you take on these kind of projects, there's a certain risk here. And there's only a certain amount of developers that want to do that anymore. So thank you for stepping up here and doing this, sir. That's all I got.
Move to approve the Cove Disposition and Development Agreement approval of preconditions.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Holliday and seconded by Mr. Shaw. Please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Holliday,
Here. Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Okay.
and Commissioner Ide. Aye. And Chair Mengelberg.
Aye.
Great, thank you
And
very
the
much.
motion
Thank you.
passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Move to approve the minutes of November 7th, 2018.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Holliday,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Okay.
Commissioner Ide, and Chair Mengelberg.
Aye, the motion passes unanimously. City Manager's report, do you have anything for us?
I do not have any updates tonight.
Hearing no other items, the meeting is adjourned.
Excellent.
Thank you, Nancy.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Bye-bye.